Wanted to check in with live reporting from the scene. We actually have one of our affiliates out there from Norfolk, Virginia. We've got Alex Littlehales, who's joining us right now from the Outer Banks. Alex, you made the trip out there. How's it looking right now?
Hey, Vanessa, good afternoon. Yeah, so just to set the scene a little bit here, first of all, it's a gorgeous day, to be frank. Besides the waves action, you'd barely know that there's kind of a hurricane coming through or passing through this area, right? But essentially, to set the scene where we're at is essentially the northernmost point of NC-12. So we are in the Corolla locality here along the Outer Banks. So those familiar with coastal North Carolina, you know that it essentially stretches from the state border of Virginia, North Carolina, which is several miles that way, all the way down to Buxton, Frisco, Ocracoke Island. So we are essentially at the most northeastern point here along the Outer Banks. And so the reason we're here, and I'll just have my photographer pan out just a little bit. So this is actually, we're going live from the area that was most recently under a mandatory evacuation. There have been several evacuations here along the Outer Banks localities. Earlier this week, it was the more southern portions of Dare County, so think Hatteras Island, areas around Hatteras, Rodanthe. That was earlier this week, but late last night, Currituck County, which is actually the overseeing jurisdiction here for Corolla and everything up to the North Carolina border, they actually issued a mandatory evacuation for all of the properties and the people that are staying north of here. So NC-12 is basically to my right. The end of that paved road is to my right, and essentially what you have here behind me is a miles-long stretch of a purely beach access road. So believe it or not, I know it's hard to tell from this distance, but there are houses, there are vacation properties, there are actually people that live in the area called Corova Beach of Corolla, again, several miles to my north. And essentially, Currituck County has asked, and they have issued a mandatory evacuation specifically because they believe, or they are expecting, that the floodwaters here from Hurricane Erin are going to make this beach access road impassable by Thursday. So, you know, they are not expecting the same level of impacts that the more southern portions of Dare County and that Hatteras may be expecting. But what they're concerned about is that there are a lot of vacationers who stay here for weeks at a time. They're concerned that these people and some of the folks that actually may permanently live here, that they will not be able to leave in case there is some kind of emergency. They are concerned that this beach access road, again, it is not paved, as you can see. It is purely compact sand, and the only vehicles that are allowed to be even on this beach are four-wheel drive vehicles where the tires have been deflated a bit so that they don't get stuck in the sand. The concern is that essentially by Thursday, cars may not even be able to get out of this area, right? So late last night, they ordered a mandatory evacuation for specifically this portion, again, of Corolla. There are other more southern portions of Corolla, other portions of the Outer Banks between Hatteras and here that are not under a mandatory evacuation. But at the moment, what it looks like is that you have the southernmost points of the Outer Banks. So again, Hatteras, Ocracoke, things around the Cape Hatteras National Seashore, and the northernmost point, so again, the several miles just below the North Carolina-Virginia border, that is also under a mandatory evacuation. And everything else in the middle is essentially under a state of emergency and sort of a state of just watching and being prepared for any inclement weather that comes from Hurricane Erin. But that's where we're joining you live from. All this morning, there were essentially people and out-of-towners evacuating this specific area. They either found other Airbnbs in this area, and some of them are actually just going home a little bit disappointed and a little bit angry that essentially their week-long vacation was cut short by, in some cases, days. So again, that's the scene here, and as you had mentioned, it is actually, you know, regardless of Hurricane Erin being off the coast here, it is objectively a very nice day here in the Outer Banks. But we have been down here for a couple days, so Vanessa, if you do have any questions, I'd be happy to provide some more insight.
Yeah, I am curious. I mean, you talked about the fact that it seems like you've spoken with some folks who, expressed disappointment, but they're going to go back home. We see, as we speak, folks walking around behind you right now. Have you gotten any insight on whether these are folks who are going to stay?
Yeah.
Or are they just taking in the last moments of nice weather, if you will, before the storm hits?
Yeah, great question. It is a little bit of both. I can tell you earlier this week, I was down on Hatteras Monday, and that evacuation layer was essentially asking the tourists and the visitors on Hatteras to leave starting around 10 a.m. on Monday. And when we were there at noon, those folks had gotten out of their Airbnbs and their rentals, but they were still on the beach. They were setting up with their beach umbrellas and their beach towels. They were still trying to get some kind of last day, so to speak, on the beach because, as you can see, certainly you're starting to see some of the effects from Hurricane Erin. You're starting to see some of the wave swells, but we're not quite seeing the 15 to 20 foot wave heights that is feared by the localities here and that is feared by meteorologists up and down the Outer Banks. And there frankly are people that are staying here just because they feel like they've been through storms before and they feel like they will be able to get through this, and that is essentially it. So I mean there is a bit of a mixed bag when you talk to the people that are still here beach going. I will say this is a very remote part of the Outer Banks because, again, you have to have a four-wheel drive vehicle to even be on this part, but presumably a lot of the people that you could see way off in the distance behind me, they are potentially visitors to the Carrava Beach area. They are people who are nearby in Kerala, who are just coming a little bit north just to see sort of the more pristine, the more natural part of the Outer Banks. So long-winded way of saying yes, there are both tourists and locals here just trying to capture a little bit before they may have to head back home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned that you were there for a couple days, so you've probably been taking in some of the sights and, observing how folks are responding to these emergency orders and the fact that, the forecast is showing what it is showing. What are you seeing as far as emergency response? Asking in the sense that, here in Charlotte, we've heard of Charlotte fire crews who are deploying out to the coast in preparation of being able to assist folks if needed. Have you been seeing any staging areas, power crews that are staging, outside of what could be considered, the danger zone, if you will? And what does that look like, that emergency response?
Well, I would say that it's still a little bit too early to tell what that emergency response will look like, just based off of the county officials that I've talked to, just anecdotally, just being in this area over the last 3 days. I think everyone's sort of waiting and anticipating that the majority of these impacts are going to be felt more Wednesday evening into Thursday. Again, the mandatory evacuation for this portion of Kerala, and you can see some of the cars, again, the deflated tires on the trucks behind me. That's for Thursday, and the county did that because they fear that Thursday is going to be the day where this beach road is impassable. So from an emergency response standpoint, we have seen local firefighter departments essentially putting out pieces of information and putting on social media that they really do want people to heed the warnings from local officials that, hey, there's a reason for this evacuation. The worry is that anyone having a medical emergency or any kind of situation on Hatteras Island, so the localities of Redanthi, Waves, Salvo, Buxton, the fear is that these emergency vehicles are not going to be able to get to these people in the first place. So they are stationed across the area. There hasn't been a ton of activity yet, but they are asking people to keep it that way because, as they said, they don't know if they will be able to physically get to people in certain parts of this viewing area if they need to get to them. So that's the concern. It is still waiting to be seen if what their kind of response is going to look like. But just I can observationally tell you that there have been crews stationed throughout the Outer Banks. They're putting out literature and information about the fact that they are out there. But please, if you are in an evacuation zone, take that seriously. They do want you to leave if that is something that is possible for you. But again,
Yeah.
I think that most of the emergency response teams are waiting from tonight into tomorrow to really determine what that level of response is going to be.
Now, curious as well, if there's any sort of local emergency operations center set up. I know in, prior deployments when I've covered hurricanes in the past, sometimes they'll have me stationed at an operations center to get regular updates if that center is, in operation. But are you aware of anything that might be of that nature there where you are? By chance, is that an area you might set up at one point, or one of your colleagues or another crew?
So Dare County, I can tell you, Dare County, which is the county that oversees everything from Duck down to Cape Hatteras, Ocracoke Island is not part of Dare County, so it's basically the bulk of the Outer Banks of which people vacation and know. Dare County's Emergency Operations Center is a bit inland in the locality of Manio, so it is actually its own separate island that is off of the Outer Banks. There's a separate bridge to get to the locality of Manio, but that is essentially where most of Dare County has its emergency operations. We did actually try to get into that, the EOC, the command center, on Monday because we were talking to the county manager, and the emergency management director there said that he would prefer we did not see the EOC ourselves. Very, very cordially asked that part of their job to just kind of be kept secret. So I do know it exists. I can tell you that it is in existence. It is in Manio. It is more inland, several miles off of the main part of the Outer Banks, but that is going to be the EOC, the Emergency Command Center, essentially, for Dare County, for the Outer Banks, and you can imagine that there's going to be a lot of coordination amongst Dare County officials with Currituck County, which is surrounding. Hyde County is technically the jurisdiction of which Ocracoke Island is a part of, so they have had to coordinate ferry crossings to get people into Dare County to then evacuate the area. So I don't know, I can't speak on if every locality is at that command center, but I do know for a fact that Dare County's emergency command center, which is the bulk of the Outer Banks, that is inland, and they are going to be working essentially all this week.
All right. Alex Littlehales, we really appreciate your reporting out there. Of course, we hope that you and your crew stay safe. And feel free to join us. If you have any updates here on Live Impact News, you know how to get a hold of us.
Yes, I do now.
All right. Take care. Be safe once again.